There we go. Peace to the family, peace, love, and light. All right, welcome back to another episode. This is What's the Science, episode number 4. I am your host, Brother Blue Pill, very soon to be joined by my co-host, Brother Akibalan 44. All right, welcome back to another amazing, explosive, absolutely extraordinary episode of What's the Science. We have a special program put together for you tonight. We got a special guest in the building. Um, and his brother's bringing some more of that dynamic information. If you're familiar with how we give it up on What's the Science, you know that we break things down to the very last compound. We lift the roof and we start to, you know, get to the mechanics, the actual mechanics, the things that actually are responsible for making things move and do what they do. All right. So we have had some amazing episodes leading up to this amazing fourth episode, and our last episode featured an amazing guest with an amazing body of information. I want to give a shout out to my brother Abiku. Okay, and the information that he brought has been creating ripple waves, throughout the community, uh, pun intended. You know what I'm saying? Because he was speaking about water is fuel, right? And, you know, that accessibility factor of energy that we all know is free. So he set an amazing precedent with the last episode with what our brother Biku brought to the platform. And tonight we're gonna continue to scale, right, and go upward with the information. And we're going to bring a dynamic guest on tonight who's going to speak to you about the inherent power that you have accessible to you by way of your breath. Right? Breath and tone, flesh and bone. Any and everything that you need to generate the power that you're looking for is attainable directly through your nostril. So again, I'm very soon to be joined by my co-host, Brother Kibalan. Will be pulling up any second now, okay? And then we will be opening up and bringing forward our guests for this evening, our brother, the Black Airbender, okay? So please make yourselves comfortable, get you some water, get relaxed. I want to shout out the brother told me about this water bottle sometime last year. I've been rocking with it ever since. So get you some water, get comfortable, all right? And we are about to definitely dial in to some information that we have been patiently awaiting. Okay? So I do see we have our guests in the building. All right. And as I wait for my co host, I'm going to open the lines. So, with no further ado, I want to open up the lines and present to you my brother, your brother, our good brother, the Black Airbender. Peace.
Greetings.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Yes, indeed, my brother. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have definitely, seen you travel the world, take your message now around the entire planet, demonstrating in real time the things that you speak on and things that you advocate as a lifestyle. So, we just did a show on the power of water. I felt that it would be very appropriate to get into the power of the breath, and as that pertains and applies to us that live in this aquatic environment because the air is also composed of water. So, can you give us give the family a very brief introduction to who you are, what your origins are? If you have any backstory that you care to share with us that leads to this particular moment, we would love to
Mm.
hear it.
Yeah, so my name is Devon, aka the Black Airbender,
Yes.
and I'm the pioneer of what I call Alchemy Breathwork, utilizing the aspect of breathwork in everyday life, tapping into mental breathwork, quantum breathwork, color breathing, and tapping deeper and deeper into the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
And I guess a quick backstory of how I even got the name the Black Airbender was doing a 31 day dry fast in a dark room therapy in my parents' basement when they went to Jamaica. And in that whole experience, I could see light within the darkness, so to speak. If you depends on how you really define light, but for everyone understanding light within the dark and seeing that we're all technically bending what I like to say black air, and that is how I came up with the name the Black Airbender, because we're all bending time and space all into one, and when you mix all the colors together, you get black, right?
Right. Okay. Give me 1 second. We are going to be joined at this particular moment by my co-host, my brother Keebalon 44. Peace, brother. There you
Peace,
go.
peace to the family. Peace, peace.
Greetings, brother.
How you
Peace.
doing? Yeah, give me a second, really quick. Okay.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so family. Peace, brother. How you doing?
I'm electrically well, and you?
I'm feeling very majestic, very illustrious, very illuminated. I'm feeling
Amazing.
really good, bro. I'm honored to have you on the show as a guest, man, because like me and Blue, we've watched your demonstration for a while now, and you know, again, this podcast, What's the Science, is about introducing to the family, and as people are know your name as well, but with the family from What's the Science, we want to introduce them to people who are actually tangibly not only building things out that help benefit the world,
Right.
but also individuals who are doing real-time demonstrations, holding seminars, focus on the breath, health in general, so we're honored, brother, and we just want to
Right.
give you the platform to be able to speak and really deliver your
Right.
dissertation.
I let me add on to that just a little bit as well. In the quote unquote age of technology that we're in, the fourth industrial revolution is a very interesting thing because they say that this is the time when there's supposed to be a synergy between cybergenetics or cybernetics and biogenetics or the body. So they're templating it to say this is the time, this may be the time when we see the merger of man and machine. But I also understand that this is also the time when man realizes in the fullness that his body is the technology, and the highest technology is this avatar that we have. So, you know, even when I saw the theme Airbender, and like I told people, my encounter with you came on, I believe it was Clubhouse, and you
Yeah.
were on there dropping, hydrogen bombs, you feel me, about, information pertaining to the science of water and air and breathing as well. And not too many people speak that language. So I was immediately tapped in. I've been listening and observing ever since then, and everything that I've seen. You've been walking on clouds. You're a Skywalker. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that the particular ideals that you advocate are ones that are of a higher level and a higher nature, and you actually demonstrate that in real time.
Mm.
And I observed you, again, taking this very ancient but futuristic science all the way around the world into the temples. You feel me? And then, I'm also a fellow, what I'm saying, wear of tinsel rings. And even when I met the brother Gaia, I had a Caesar, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Now I got this little afro, and it's all because of this resonance, and this piece of technology that I have. It's really electrifying, my mental faculties. So I'm a living example of the fact that this simple but very technical, complex but very accessible piece of technology, is just the beginning of a very expansive conversation that we should look forward to having with brothers such as yourself to understand the science of this particular free energy field that we now have access. We've always had access to it, but now we can have conversations and people are receptive enough to be receptive to it. You feel me? And with all that being said, I know who you are and what you represent, and I couldn't wait, to introduce that to a wider audience. And here we are on this auspicious day of Friday the 13th. You know
Oh
what I'm
snap! I didn't
saying?
even realize.
So there we have it. You know what I'm saying? Welcome.
Thank you again. Thank you again. And yeah, thank you guys for having me on here, sharing the knowledge you already have shared, and creating the communities you have created. I gotten closer with a friend you may have met out there in Mount Shasta, and it's funny. I think it was around the same time you told me your Mount Shasta story on Clubhouse that he was out there with you. Kush, Big
Yes,
Dreads.
yes. The brother.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So we're actually he's here in Miami. We're
Yeah.
co-creating some crazy wild things right now.
Yeah. And you know, when I met Kush and Shasta, he also was, showing me the toroid fields with the pyramid technology. Again, a representation of the youth, right? You brothers that come from that particular generation, Akibalon as well, that have a very thorough understanding of this technology and are able to apply it in real time. What I saw him, he was applying, he was living, he was guarding in real time.
Mhm.
And the same with you. So, and when you put these minds together to get it, you know what I'm saying, and can actually apply it, that gives me a level of excitement about what the future will, eventually unveil itself as, because it's you know what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
it's enough minds, it's enough you know aware eyes that are on this thing that we're going to be able to collapse this wave into a particle. You feel me?
Mhm. And also too, brother, if you could, because before I got on, I was listening in, and you referenced black air. You referenced the fact that we have the capacity to bend black air. So good for the family, kind of, explain your perspective on that and what you mean by black air.
So what I mean by black air, when you close your eyes, you see somewhat of a darkness, right? And when you close your eyes, you're most likely heading into dream state. So what are you doing there? You're bending the ethers within time and space in that regard. And that's what I mean by black air. So if you're breathing in your sleep, that's another dimension in itself. You're breathing in within this, if you want to call it the time, in a timestamp. You're breathing in that dimension, and that goes to show you, like in your dreams, you're breathing. When you go in the astral, you somewhat feel. I don't want to call it breathing in a sense, but you somewhat feel there's like an aerial, air essence to it, and
It's
and they,
ethereal.
yeah, it's very ethereal, right? And when they opened a portal, or I don't know if it's called I don't know. I forgot which foundation did it, but when they opened up a portal in a sense, and they were opening up a space where time is going bending backwards, and how they calculated that it was bending backwards was using air. So it just goes to show you that the aspect of air is in every dimensional consciousness, if you will. That's what I like to say.
um
The black air.
yeah, if I can also add on, because I experienced a few things that might add some context to what you have said here this evening. um in about it was about 2003. I was on like I was I was very, what's the word I should look for? I was like a zealot when I got some of this information. So I had just stopped eating, period. I became a breatharian in so many words, right? When I heard that it was accessible, I just stopped eating, and I just tapped into breath. Like I just went full scale with it. And we were in the basement, it was pitch black, and I was doing a breathing meditation technique. And with this particular technique, I was training myself to breathe in my mind so I wouldn't have to breathe, with my nostrils anymore. And it was really based on visualization. So I was able to see myself catch a jet or a current, right? And almost, if you can imagine like a sea turtle, how a sea turtle hits it will be a wind current, but it's in the ocean. So it's called something else, like a jet stream. And it takes the particular, like, the turtle gotta exert no force or energy. You just gotta find the particular wave or the stream to interface with, and that stream is gonna take you where you need to go. So in so many words, I achieved that in my mind, and I was able to find a wind current and breathe through my mind. And I probably was, they said that I was under for like 8 minutes, and I had emitted this red ray, like it was like an x-ray, and it knocked my brother KT down. Boom! Right? They said this shit shot for me like Scott Summers. You know what I mean? So I had to bend or refract light. And the way that I experience time is through breathing. So when I stop breathing, I manipulate time. You know what I'm saying? I've also had this experience happen to me on psilocybins before. So I know that time can be manipulated. I've glitched it numerous of times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's intricately tied to breathing, because the way that you experience time, it has to be through breath.
Right.
Right? Because it's a metric. Time is a metric. It's a measurement of your heartbeat
Mm-hmm.
naturally, and your breathing and your breath rhythm, which is supposed to be intrinsically tied to the breathing or the Schumann resonance of this planet. So when you start figuring out these things about how to trip out time with your mind, because that's a whole nother apparatus. And then I've since that point, when I started studying human design and they started teaching me about the power of the spleen and it being a brain, and then even learning more about breathing through the heart, there's some things that I really do want to go back and experiment with. But again, this is that threshold work. Like, you really got to be committed and willing to go past that level of what's considered uncomfortable to
Mm-hmm.
get to that place where you realize, like, oh, this avatar is on a whole nother level when you get to the other side,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know?
and just to add on to what you're saying as far as the ability to hold your breath, because Dr. Bento, an author, speaks about the fact that when you go through a process of holding the breath, you rhythm and train certain organs in the body in reference to the brain, the aorta, which is the longest organ in the body that extends from the left side of the heart down to the bifurcation where it forks off to both in both legs. So he speaks about the fact that when you hold your breath, there's a certain rhythm entrainment between the lungs and the aorta that extends from the left side of the heart. And what happens is you basically activate the brain, which is an oscillator, which is a crystal that sits in a pool of plasma that's electrically conductive. And by way of holding your breath, your body now is resonating specifically at the Schumann resonance, which now allows the brain to actually access the ionosphere. Because when you hold your breath, your brain literally begins to vibrate and it hits the skull. The brain, again, is a crystal that's piezoelectric. So when it's oscillating and it's hitting the skull, that's a level of compression, which begins to generate a charge. That charge then allows the brain to literally open up and access that ionosphere that sits about 300 kilometers above Earth's surface. So when we're talking about the ancestors tapping into this space that they call the BAA, you know, they understood that this space was very conductive, and it was reflective, because everything in this physical reality has an electromagnetic emission, and everything is duplicated in this space. So if you can have the capacity to lock in or phase lock into the space called the ionosphere, this is how you can tap in and pull what our ancestors looked at as archetype energy that's locked into this space by way of the solar flares. So that's another technique that I've learned, is by way of holding the breath, because again, the breath begins to literally oscillate the brain, nerve fibers that cross between both hemispheres of the brain, the third ventricle, and also the aorta, which they deemed are all four oscillators. And when you can get all four oscillators on one accord, this is how you not only lock into the Schumann resonance of the planet, but also lock into the ionosphere and literally tap into what we call free energy. You know, I know you mentioned too, black air. Black air is also nothing but what they call counter space, empty space. You know, they call it the dielectric field, the primordial waters of noon, dark matter, dark energy. You know, scientists today call it the superfluid quantum space. But in essence, like the brother was speaking about, we have the capacity to access this field, and understanding that the body itself is a piece of technology. There's certain techniques that we can do in order to tap in and literally pull information and energy from counter space, right? So, you know, that's key, you know, to understand. The black air, again, is full of light. It's just light you can't visibly see, you know? So, yeah, just to add on to what Blue, you know, said in the Black Airbender, it's key for us to understand that, you know, because again, we've been so conditioned and accustomed to observing a very small spectrum of light, which is only 10 to 11%. But if we can acquiesce to a more, you know, broader spectrum of light, you know, this literally, you know, gives us our, you know, superhero powers, right? It allows us to, again, assimilate a level of information that's coming from a hyperdimensional space per se. So, you know, I feel like that's key. And the brother, the Black Airbender, he demonstrates techniques on how to even access this field, you know, and one way is, you know, by breathing. So I just wanted to add that piece in there.
Oh, that was beautifully said. You literally describe what when I take in when I tell people, like, I can take a normal inhale, and I can hear the internal binaural beat. I can control that. It's not that it always happens all the time. Like, I can at will control that. So you beautifully, I got to get a piece of that. Got to get a cut out of that, because you beautifully explain what I feel, but without actually holding the breath. I can just take a normal inhale at this point and slow down the exhale, and I can still hear that it goes like whoop 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 whoop, just like the 7.83 and the oscillation from like 7.83 hertz to 10 hertz, like back and forth in a sense.
Yeah, and see, you know, what we call again black air is the dielectric field. What, you know, scientists even go as far as to call it the photon, right? Because photon, when you're dealing with longitudinal waves, which are sound waves, but they're compression and rarefaction waves, those compression points are what they call photons today. But in essence, it's just high energy light. So everything that we're experiencing is physical reality is high energy light, but it's coalescing around what you call a longitudinal wave. You know, so by way of that, boom, 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 boom. That is a dielectric pulse. Again, counter space. You know, so when you access this field, you're even hearing sounds that you don't hear on a normal basis, because it's a completely different environment. It's sound that you can't hear. It's light that you can't see. You know, it's a whole completely different reality. And this is why our ancestors were so equipped in knowing that the idea was to tap into forces that you can't see with the visible eye, because this is how we access that space. You know, we're talking about Osiris, when we're talking about Isis, when we're talking about these individuals, these deities in Kemet, we're dealing with forces of nature. You know, more specifically, Isis dealt with structured water. Structured water is, you know, structured cytoplasm. Let's say structured plasma in the body. You know, you can structure your water by sitting water outside and allowing infrared heat to hit it. But Isis represented structured water, the glyph, on the walls in Kemet was a throne. The throne represented structured water because they understood once the ionized was structured, the specific hexagonal geometry allowed us to process sound stars. So, it's all in reference to, again, tapping into this dark energy, this dark field that we exist in, which is the space in between me and my phone. We get this concept that the universe is somewhere out there when the universe is on the tip of our nose, just like my brother Blue has always said. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
I like how you brought up the water aspect, and when I went to Egypt and I saw the vortex with my own two eyes going up the Nile, like everything clicked of like why I'm seeing what I'm seeing and why the pyramids are all the way over there, and how everything just correlated. It just starts to make more sense. And
Yeah.
I can only imagine if the pyramids were still active, and most of the people were living like close to the Aswan area and down the Nile. They were just structuring their waters and having it flow down the Nile and using that for endless things. I can imagine. In that sense, it's just when the pyramids were deactivated, if you will, that's when people started rushing over. That's when the Ethiopian priests knew what was happening, took what they took without even interfering, and went back to Ethiopia with some tools and stuff. So it's very interesting. All comes back to the aspect of water, man. That water holds a memory, and that was like the biggest impact in my journey, bringing the scalar over there and going into the temples. But it was really the water that really left a huge impact on me. The longer I stayed.
Right. And you mentioned scalar. If you could, for the family, because there's a lot of videos talking about scalar energy. I've actually studied scalar energy for a little bit, and they give it different names. But based on your practices and your insight, what can you give the family as far as a definition to what scalar energy is, or scalar energy?
Yeah, so one of the hot words people are starting to use is scalar wave, when in actuality it's more of an impulse. So it's scalar impulse instead of a wave. You can only measure scalar wave to a certain degree. That's when I did the reading with Dr. James Cottrell. I asked him like, oh, how far is the scalar wave going out to? And he's like, I asked for like a measurement, like how many feet, and then he goes none, and it just certain things start to coagulate in that sense. But to break it down to the most simplified way, because I love simplifying things as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Think of the same frequencies coming together, canceling each other out, and when they cancel each other out, they create that impulse. And what else has an impulse? Your heartbeat has an impulse. Think of things at certain molecular rates having an impulse. Nothing is truly solid. Everything is moving and creating an impulse in a sense. So that is what that scalar energy is somewhat writing, and that's what makes it so divine, because it doesn't encapsulate itself. So when you think of electricity is actually a derivative from scalar. Scalar come first. So if you ask me what's faster than the speed of light and sound, it's scalar. And that's when even some of our ancestors would even say that the whole aspect of scalar is somewhat more divine, in a divine essence, in a sense. So you can put it under orgone energy, prana, ki, chi. It all resides in that same category, all the way down to our thoughts. Our thoughts are scalar. Our thoughts produce gravity. The more you have a stressful thought, the more you start to get a headache, in a sense. So think of scalar in that sense, and how we've been utilizing scalar. We started 12 months. It's been a whole year now. I started with my members group because I think people were really going to call me crazy when I was doing the whole remote stuff. So I started with my members group, and people send their pictures. People with their injuries would send them, and we take their picture and we use a biogeometric blueprint, and we put it over the picture, and then we place it onto the physical scalar. And at that time, we were only generating around 60 frequencies, and remotely people would experience it, but not just physically, but certain things within their lives start to change, click. Although it really hit me with, going back to the aspect of thoughts are scalar. There's this one girl in my group, and her intention was, the reason why she put her niece on there, because her niece had somewhat mental issues, in a sense, where she would isolate herself from the kids in the school, and you could tell she was depressed, in a sense. And when we put her on the scalar, in like 3 days, she contacted me and she told the group, like, for the first time, she like came up with a smile. I asked her, like, "Oh, how was your day?" And it was a more intellectual type of conversation they had, and it just goes to show you that scalar energy, when used right intentionally, can be helpful in the aspect of depression, anxiety, beyond the aspect of the physical body.
Right.
And if you want to go into the way of it not being used right, look what they did in Australia I think it was a couple months ago, where they had those trucks with those satellites on there beaming at the protesters. What do you think they were beaming at them with? They didn't have to come out with guns or
Right.
rifles to intimidate them. You know what? We're just gonna blast out frequencies at you, and you can see these. Some people had the rashes. People were also throwing up. You name it. So I like to say, whatever they can do, we can do too. I always like to say that. So whenever someone have a conversation and be like, "Oh, look what they doing this and that," I'm like, "Oh, we can also do that too," but the complete opposite.
Yeah, no, I mean, thoughts themselves are scalar wave configuration, transharmonic patterns of bipolar electromagnetic radiation. So when you think a thought, that is a scalar wave because it's instantaneous. Like you said, in Australia, they were beaming people with beams, right? But they were tapping scalar energy, because scalar energy, another word for that is, again, longitudinal interferometry, longitudinal waves. So it's instantaneous action at a distance. Same energy that Nikola Tesla was using to generate wireless, energy clear across the world instantaneously. So this is why also, well, we've been bamboozled into believing that the sun emits light. The sun doesn't really emit light. What it's doing is the sun is oscillating within the waters that we exist in, is creating a disturbance, which is generating something similar as gravitational waves, but consider a wave. So we're feeling the substance that the sun and you and exist in, not necessarily like that person
You going in and out. Hello?
emitting.
Okay.
You
You
good?
was, yeah, you was going in and out.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. No, I'll just repeat what I said, but basically I was speaking about the fact they say that the sun emits light, but the sun is disturbance within the waters that we exist. You hear me?
You choppy on my end.
Yeah, it's going in and out on my end.
Going in and out. Well, right. Yeah, it's going in and out. I did hear you though. I heard majority of what was being said. It registered. It was just skipping a little. It's a little echo right now.
Yeah, to add on
Yeah.
to that, if people, to get people's understanding, to the higher you go, why is it cold? Shouldn't it be hot? If the sun's out, why is it cold the higher you go up in altitude? So it just goes to show you that the sun is not what they say it is, right? And when you get to that point, you can see that the sun is actually like a black hole. It's like, and it goes into certain myths and stories and talk about the black hole sun. In a sense, they weren't joking around when they painted the sun like being like black in the light. They were not playing around. So going back to the whole aspect of the black hole, or if you even if you don't want to call it a black hole, or if you want to call it a portal, if you will, or something that just bends time and space in a spiral, which it does, and you can look up the Carrington spiral in terms of from north looking down, they found, following the sunspots, how the sun goes in a spiral. That's how even Tesla got his idea for the rotating, his idea all the way down to the Tesla coil. But the Tesla coil mainly came from the lingam in India, where the lingam, if you look on certain points of how they had the lingam in ancient texts, you see the lingam and then you see sparks coming out the lingam, and most lingams were generating so much heat, but they were also harmonizing with the sun. And that's why they had, it's always following natural law. Natural law will teach us way more than science could ever could, because even science today will start to scratch your head when it comes to natural law.
Facts.
Right. And let me know if I'm cutting in and out, and I have to do something about it. But in essence, like you said, everything follows natural law. I always speak about the fact that, again, our reality is based on people's perspective who have a very limited process. Still doing it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know if you're on Wi-Fi or not, but maybe turn it off Wi-Fi or turn it.
Yeah.
Out.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
I'll let me cut out and then I'm gonna cut back in. I'm gonna come back in.
All right, cool. Yeah, bro. So you was gonna say something?
Oh, want me to add on natural law?
Yes, absolutely. Natural law.
So I'll give everyone a book that they can go look up. It's called Naturalis Philosophicis. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but it's the natural law of the philosophy of natural law by Bogdanovich. And it was actually the same book that Tesla was holding in one of his iconic pictures with the cage, yeah. And that's technically his favorite book, but people are speculating and scratching their head of how did he get the English version, way before it ever came out. So he definitely knew some people in that sense,
Right.
to get it. But that book will give you a headache because it just goes deep into the essence of all the way down to atomic characteristics, down to how things correlate with each other, down to all the way down to the aspect of how you got here safely. Did you calculate all the algorithms of this air touching the car in a certain way so you didn't tip over and hit another car? And that's how deep that book goes into. You're gonna have to read that book at least 3-4 times. It will blow your head open. That book changed my life and showed me that things are not always black and white when it comes to science too. So
What year was it written? You think around
I don't even know on the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's a book a lot of people can definitely check that out.
Okay. Philosophy of natural law, because people always ask for book lists. Are there anything else? Any other books that you might want to recommend?
Well, obviously the Tao Te Ching. If you guys have never talked about that, I'm sure you have.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. That's one of my go-to. And biogeometric signatures. Biogeometric signatures will give you a nice introductory into scalar and what I'm doing. And it's also coming from a doctor who doesn't even believe in spiritual law and things of that nature until he's actually getting the testimonials he's gotten at this point.
Right.
He's seeing that, and the inspiration came from him going to Kemet himself and learning how certain movements of the hand activates and sends a bioenergetic resonance to certain organs in the body, and how you can use certain symbols and put it on certain corners of your house, and it creates a different energetic resonance in the house that you really do feel it. Actually, there's even a particular every imagery you see in there is actually what we use on the scalar blueprint when we take someone's picture, and we actually double plated his blueprint, and then we added some other stuff on there to make it even more powerful. in that sense. And we also utilize holographic technology, which is something else we can definitely dive into, and how holographic technology is actually being used, or at least is being looked at. In my opinion, it should be used at this point, where even if they still want to use chemo or whatever, at least you can utilize holographics and pinpoint the certain organ and drive certain frequencies into the organ versus tainting the rest of the body in a harmful way.
Right. So these are new procedures that can be non-invasive and rely on light as a healing modality as opposed to doing full-scale surgery.
Bingo. Yep. Holographics is a key gateway that's finally being looked at.
Right. Well, they're definitely speaking about sound therapy now. They're speaking about color therapy. Um, so I can't see why holographics would be off the table if
Yeah, and if you think about holographics, it's literally all this spectrum of light and colors.
right.
They just the final point where we started using holographics, that's when people really started to feel the resonance of scalar.
And I was gonna keep my coming through clear.
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna ask you, go into the science, because we've seen the pyramid on the head, and we're talking about scalar energy, understanding the science of sacred geometry, you know, uh, and the equipment you have. So I wanted you to explain to the family what the reason.
You're going in and out still. We heard we made out what you said.
Yeah.
But I just want to bring that to your attention. But yes,
Yeah.
brother. He wants to know the significance, which I was going to lead to as well. What's the significance of geometry and all of this? You know what I'm saying? How does it break down? How do things at a did it in the physical material realm, even if they are arranged at particular angles, what effects do they have on the non-visible subtle energetic field?
Yeah, so the pyramids that I'm wearing, it's orgone plated. They're not just metal plated. And the procedure with orgone is they utilize um, dipping the titanium into a certain charge at a particular point and a particular frequency, and add a pot, basically canceling the charges out to create that orgone effect. And I have different plating. This is gold and copper. The middle one is diamond plated. This one is just gold plated at that point. And there's a significant resonance, if you will. When I went to Egypt, for the first time in a long time, my head was buzzing the closer we got to the pyramids. And I thought I was going crazy. So I had everyone else try the pyramid themselves, and they felt that buzzing sensation the closer and closer we got to it. Because in terms of these pyramids are they're mirroring the geometry of the Giza pyramids that we were literally driving closer and closer to.
Right. So 52, 51 degrees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was resonating with the resonance.
Exactly. And that's tapping into the mirror neurons effect in that sense, if you want to. If people can finally see a layering and a connection there and understanding, even into scalar in that aspect, in terms of the mirror neurons effect. So certain geometries around us definitely have an effect on the body, because internally, certain cells have pyramid shapes and connections, right? So that's why wearing a pyramid, even certain experiments they did with Pyramid House, I forgot the lady's name, but certain experiments done with pyramids of how it helps heal certain stuff when it's made out of certain material. There's a reason why the pyramids in Giza was made with limestone. It's actually very conductive. Even when you put limestone on the 0 point energy generator over here, you'll see the sparks come out of it. So that's how you can tell limestone is very, very conductive.
Very
So,
conductive.
So certain geometrical shapes play a huge factor in our overall being, even down to the trees themselves. I like to think of nature itself giving us natural fractal therapy.
Right. Because that's the word that I was going to use, even with the pyramid. You know, if you have a pyramid on your head, is at the same angular motion as the pyramid that you are approaching, then you are dealing with a fractal, right? The pyramid on your head is the same degree. It's a fractal of the size of the pyramid in front of you, but technically in the energetic realm, it's the same thing, because now the pyramid on your head almost becomes the holographic of, you know, the pyramid in front of you, the physical one that you're approaching, which, as you know, have proven now, of course, if it's the same shape, then it still holds the same charge, whether it's a hologram, an energetic signature, or the physical thing, you know. So yeah, that's
Let me make sure I'm cutting through. I had my apologies, family. I had to switch devices. Can you hear me clear?
Oh, a lot
uh-huh
better.
A lot
yeah
better. Okay.
yeah
Okay.
yeah
Okay. Yes, and you know, we're touching on sacred geometry. I wanted to add on to it. You know, it's interesting because, you know, when we talk about sacred geometry, and I spoke about this as well, is that, you know, sacred geometry has a specific ratio that is locked in with in reference to the phi ratio, the 1.618, which is the only ratio when you add wave mechanics to it that allows electromagnetic waves to constructively embed within one another, called neg entropy, right? So neg entropy basically is perfect nesting, what they call, or fractality, or, you know, things of that nature. But shapes like you have, you know, allow basically a vortex to be generated from above by way of that triangle following that phi ratio, because in essence what it's doing is it's pulling energy in by way of a centripetal convergence. So if we can think of a torus field, you know, you have two rotations. You have a centripetal and a centrifugal. A centrifugal will be considered the clockwise rotation, which is responsible for the actual geometry of the toroidal donut. But then you have centripetal convergence, which is counterclockwise, which is the spiraling inward toward the center. And that's what literally that triangle is doing, is it's allowing you to extrapolate charge from gravity by way of acquiescing to a specific mathematics, which is the 1.618. So, you know, light that you can't even physically see is constructively embedding within one another by following that specific ratio. And this is why you can't see it, because harmony deems blackness. And, you know, the physical realities by way of deconstructive wave interference. So what we deem as the physical reality comes by way of colors, but the color that we're visibly seeing is being ejected at a 90-degree angle by way of not acquiescing to that state of harmony of the other colors that is coalescing together, called again neg entropy. You know, so what we're experiencing is a level of deconstructive wave interference. But if we can basically introduce sacred geometry into our physical existence, this is how we can not only extrapolate charge from gravity, but also coalesce waves together. And actually, as a matter of fact, there's a book called Shape Power. That's the book. I don't know if you've heard about that. I can't remember the author's name, but it's a book called Shape Power that explains the science of sacred geometry and electromagnetism. So quite frankly, you know, it's literally you pulling free energy. So when you're wearing pieces on your head that is following that specific ratio, that phi ratio, you're extrapolating, like I said, either, you know, charge from gravity, but also too allowing electromagnetic waves to create literally a vortex or you know, a center point for you to, you know, pull energy in. So
I like how you said center point. I've noticed there's a reason why I wear it in the center like this versus on the side like this anymore, because there's a middle in the skull. I forgot the name of it. I know I was listening. I was reading the Hindu name for it, but in the middle of the skull there's a lining, and as a kid that lining's actually soft, and as we get older it gets harder and harder and harder. And some of the ancient stories, they say that when it gets harder and harder, that's when the disconnect happens from the ethers, you want to call it that.
That's where you're corded at, you know, that soft part of the skull that they tell you don't touch with babies. That's the crown, that's the cord. And they say as it hardens, you have that particular disconnect.
Right.
So the more I started wearing it in the center like so, it actually is getting softer and softer, and that's when I started to feel that buzzing effect all over again. I'm like, oh, it's been a while, but maybe I should start wearing this like it like so. And then I did more research into it of why I was feeling that way, because it's in harmony of that one line on the head.
Yeah, you know, we're talking about angle momentum. We're talking about, you know, specific latitude, longitudinal. You know, we're talking about, you know, alignment that allows, again, you to manipulate the ethers by way of sacred geometry. You know, so the pyramids, you know, all these sacred sites, they understood that, you know, you place, you know, instruments in the body, even the body, in points on the earth where the magnetic fields cross, you know, because that is a place where basically you get a flux of not only information but energy, you know, that you can biologically embed, you know. So wherever magnetic lines cross, whether you're talking about Giza, whether you're talking about Stonehenge, whether you're talking about you know, so many other sacred sites, they understood these points have a specific convergence. They're nodal points, and that's where magnetic lines cross, you know, and even down to, you know, our ancestors being so strategic to know that, you know, the plasma body has the capacity to successfully disengage from the physical body if you place it at a space where the magnetic flux is very intense, because now that magnetic field of the mind has the capacity to maintain itself outside the body. And now you're conscious of everything you're doing, because plasma is nothing but intelligence. So if you can completely ionize the body by way of getting sunlight, putting your bare feet in the grass, eating electric foods, this is going to structure the water in the body. And upon you making transition, the physical body drops, but the plasma body stays alive, and you remain conscious as who you are, not only as who you are, but also you're intact with the level of information that you know took in during this lifetime that you take with you, you know. So that's a key factor to understand as well. You know, it's very sacred and strategic on where we put the physical body upon transition. So it's all dealing with electromagnetism and sacred geometry. Yeah. So, you know, you know, it's just, again, like understanding that there's a completely different language that we have to introduce to the family by way of science. And you spoke on natural law earlier. I always talk about cosmic law. This is real-time demonstration in reference to cosmic law. And I'm gonna give you an example of what I do, because you're manipulating the ethers in real time. And we have to understand that we are the creators in this reality, but we also have to have the audacity to claim that, you know, because that is our birthright. So with us living in this physical reality, we are governed by laws, but we are made up of light. But how do you reconcile the two? Well, you know, perfect example is when you go outside and you see something that you deem spiritual, either an owl in a tree, or, you know, if you cross if you know, if I don't know, a black cat crosses your path, or, you know, something that you may see, you know, you know, coincidental. You know, an average person will look at that experience and just kind of haphazardly, you know, just give it, you know, some sort of definition based on how they've been indoctrinated and keep it moving. But in that moment, what the universe is doing is introducing you to an opportunity to basically spiritualize matter. because that's in essence what we're here to do. We're here to bring the particle with the wave and the wave with the particle, you know, and in mathematics, they call that the grand unified theorem. So in that moment, when you see an owl in a tree, you build a metaphor around it based on your own individual interpretation of it. Because in that moment, what you're doing is you're qualifying the outside to be the inside. Thus, you completely eliminate duality. And now you create a threshold with the universe to allow the universe to see a reference point outside of its own existence that it can refer back to. Thus, it's going to open up supernatural doors for you because, again, you have the audacity to label something based on your interpretation, because in that moment, you're collapsing the wave. You're merging the particle with the wave and the wave with the particle. Thus, the universe has to acquiesce to that. Thus, that is cosmic law. Cosmic law is you literally defining something based on your own perspective, which now the universe hears you and it's going to acquiesce to it, because that's how the universe continues to upgrade itself. So as we continue to oscillate in and out of existence, the teaching of the universe comes by way of defining our outer reality based on our own interpretation outside of how we've been conditioned. So instead of going outside and calling the sun, I'm gonna go outside and call the sun a hyperdimensional gateway that serves as a medium between us and higher star systems. The universe has to acquiesce to it, and thus nature is naturally going to create a level of synchronicity within my reality that's going to make that reality become real for me. You see? So in that moment, I became a mathematician, I became a chemist, I became a scientist, because in mathematics, I literally in that moment solved the grand unified theorem. I brought the spiritual world with the physical, thus eliminating duality and seeing the outside as the inside. And as you continue to keep doing that, your level of compassion begins to grow, because compassion is nothing but you following your passion. So you're defining your own reality based on your perspective. Your compassion grows, which in essence is actually you imploding your magnetic field. So when you're feeling compassion, that's an implosion through the heart, what they call dielectric acceleration. And what they call it in Kemet, the fact that now your heart is extrapolating charge from gravity. Because when you're doing that, again, you're literally folding space and time. And there's no coincidence why they say, you know, time flies when you're having fun. It's all in reference to the heart and by you following your passion. So if it's a level of acceleration that takes place when you begin to live your life in a level of enthusiasm, and also to have the audacity to follow cosmic law, because when you follow cosmic law, supernatural doors open up for you, because the universe has to acquiesce to you defining your reality based on your own individual perspective.
And it's literally looking at the algorithm of life when to correlate with what you said, when you became like a mathematician and all these different things all into one, was when you finally accepted that well, personally for me in this sense, was the day that I accepted that everything was my fault. That was the day that everything started to ripple, have a huge ripple effect. You know, for example, like when I was homeless at a certain point, and I was sleeping in Dunkin' Donuts at this point too. So every time I would see a transaction happening, I would say that with this breath, I'm breathing life into that type of energy. And one thing led to another, getting a job and such, to the point where I'm a waiter or whatever. And I'm getting tips or whatever, said, all right, I'm breathing more life into this. And then change into catering to a certain point. And I'm going to big businesses and stuff of that nature. Now I'm saying, and I'm seeing myself shift so fast in a small matter of time, but it's like, wait a minute, am I finally understanding one of the key algorithms of honoring the truth that is displayed in front of us, also honoring you're sending it right back to sender in a sense, the however you want to define it, God, universe, however you want to define that, is giving you reality, and you're honoring reality, being real in real time, and shifting the algorithm. For me, it was breath in a sense, and using that because that was a main string to every moment in life in general, right? So using that, I could finally shift, but not only shift, I was bringing a part of me that knew about what I call quote unquote breath consciousness, to the point where, we've, it was a very surreal moment because I was channeling him through another person when Dr. James Cottrell, when I did the session with him, I was saying that, okay, who in what world, in what timeline, a past life of mine had what I call quote unquote breath consciousness. Who is this person? And before I even said that, I was already having uh, in-depth talks. Like I was using my breath to communicate to him in at that point in time. So this was also my test of testing out Dr. Cottrell as well. And he went to the 1800s to a monk called Bam, and the way he was describing it word for word was how the breath was still teaching me, like it's showing me things of that nature, and he was going detail for detail, and I was like, whoa, I think we're getting to that convergence. And then it sounded it went from him explaining what Bam was doing to having an actual Bam was using him as a medium to give things directly in that sense, literally turning, using, he could literally breathe into his hands and create things out of nothing, like candy, because he used to play with kids. He could create candy just using his breath out of nothing, creating nothing into something. And that's what I use the term turning every breath into gold, becoming the alchemist in that sense, leading to this diversion point. And it just expanded everything. And I want to share that with everyone to honor the fact that, to a certain degree, everything is your fault. And when you step into that role, into the character in that sense, you go from the back seat into the front seat and become a co-creator, but not just a co-creator with the all that, I like to say, the all that is, but you can finally see the whole front window, and you can finally see which path is leading you and which path and where it's going in that sense. And you finally can use the filter of what that window represents.
Right. Yeah. When we can begin to combine um, the human cosmic anatomy with thought and guide it with real intention, this is how we reclaim one of the most potent forms of scalar power. This is why it's important to understand how the body works internally, because when you can visualize what is actually taking place in real time by way of acquiring a visual in the mind, you develop a new neural network in reference to the visual now based on your intellectual property by way of how the body works. The brain is going to create a new neural network, and the pineal gland is going to take that information and convert it into an endocrine output, which is a hormone. Mind you, this is happening faster than the speed of light. This information now then is translated to every red blood cell in the body by way of it being magnetic and storing it there. The red blood cells are traveling through the body and then store that information in the heart as a memory. So, we have to begin to understand that in order for us to really exist in that 0 point that you're talking about, that nodal point, we have to basically create a level of convergence by way of understanding that we've been educated to look outside of us as separate, when the outside is the same as the inside. So again, when you feel a level of compassion for people, that's actually you imploding on yourself. That is you imploding the magnetic field back within. And when you can then combine the thought of the actual magnetic field manipulating the internal structure of the body, that is what is going to give you the level of power to manipulate your reality. But it's all based on visual imagination. This is why imagination has to be completely stripped out of us as we continue to grow up, because imagination is better than knowledge. When you can have a specific imagination, that is a thought that is actually created by way of a visual, and the brain serving as the crystal's job is to be able to transduce that information, develop a new neural network. The pineal gland can take that take that information and convert it into an endocrine output and store it in the body as a memory. So, you know, it's all in reference to, again, perspective and perception. How have we been educated to look out to what the sun represents? How have we been educated to look at what counter space is? What, you know, the space in between me and my phone? Have we been told that there's an abundant amount of information within the space between me and my phone? Have we been educated and told that we can actually access this field? You know, we haven't. So the mind can't create the visual to develop the new neural network in the brain to convert that into a hormone to set the body at a specific resonance in order to acquiesce within that space that we exist in, what we call the dielectric field or counter space, right? So that's why it's so important to go to higher levels of information, because you have to equip the mind with the necessary tools in order for the body to respond. Thus, again, nature is naturally going to synchronize you with specific experiments that is going to reinforce that information that you took in. But again, it all starts with perception and imagination. And this is, again, why that's obviously bred it out of us as we grow older, because, you know, what do they say in the Bible? You can't enter the kingdom of heaven unless you're like the child, unless you have the mind of a child, something like that. I can't remember the specific verse, but you know, that is our, childlike. That is our superpower. So, you know, it's not, again, something that is a waste when you are doing your due diligence and studying. Again, we begin to think that doing the work has to be very strenuous and hard. Doing the work is acquiring a level of information because you're storing that in your magnetic field, which gives the brain now the capacity to go through a level of neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is nothing but you beginning to create new synapses in the brain in reference to new information that you're taking in. And the job now of the physical body is to take that information, translate it, store it in the cells to set up the right resonance in order for you to attract that specific level of information to you and continue to reinforce that. You know, but yeah, again, it all starts with a level of perception. So like you said, brother, we have the capacity to literally be at that nodal point, at that 0 point, you know, and manipulate our reality in real time. So it's all about just stepping out the box and creating a new level of, you know, not only information, but a completely different dialect and lexicon. So yeah, that's my piece. That's my piece with that.
Yeah, just like emotions, energy in motion. You are, you know, we all like to think of what animates the body, breath, right? So when we're mad, we're still breathing. When you're angry, when you're sad, you're still breathing. When you're laughing, you're still breathing. But those are all different emotional bodies. In a sense, that's the portals right in front of you. And the more we can start to pinpoint that, the more we can finally exercise or expand our awareness to the fact that, hey, I do have the ability to. It's just like this movie I just saw, any time, anywhere, with the Asian lady, where she's going into different dimensions. I'm like, quantum breathing. It's like right there. That's literally it. You're breathing into different bodies in a sense, but not different bodies, but it's your same body, your soul. But now you're getting more of the awareness of the string that is connecting everything all at once, literally just like the title, everything all at once, with a breath. Because all at once, there's only one inhale. All at once, there's one exhale. But it's just mini fractals that we're all taking in this one moment, which is
right. Right. And I'll even take it a step further. And I spoke about this as well. In Kemet, they understood the science of the breath. So when you see the eye of Heru that's fractionalized, or that's fractioned, you know, you'll see the eye of Heru, but then you'll see, you know, basically different parts of the eye of Heru labeled or corresponding to different parts of the brain. So you'll see the 1/2, then the 1/4, the 1/8, the 1/64. And what they're talking about is by a certain way of breathing, you actually activate different circuits of the brain. So the goal is to get to more inhales than exhale. And I've used this example before. The body is naturally intelligent. So you do this demonstration when you get upset, when you cry, and the body naturally begins to breathe more inward than outward. So if you're bawling and you're crying and you're doing a, that's your body
Yeah.
actually activating the subconscious in order for you to basically adhere to a more rational thinking. So that way, out of anger, you don't do something irrational. You see, so you're tapping more into the asymptomatic system of the body by way of breathing in more than you breathe out. And that's what they were speaking about with those fractions in Kemet. So the 1/4 is 4 inhales, 1 exhale. That accesses one part of the brain. 8 inhales, then 1 exhale. That accesses another part of the brain. Now, the one that is the quote unquote the biggest, I guess, is the 1/64. So there's certain people that can actually inhale 64 times. And Brother Alim Bey spoke about this. Brother A. Rashid spoke about this as well. But there's brothers out there that can inhale 64 times before they exhale. And what that does is, again, it creates an illumination within the brain. It activates different circuits of the brain. That gives you, again, more access to that dielectric field that we're speaking about, or 0 point. So that's another thing I want to add to the breath.
Gamma breath. I call it the gamma breath.
Please
Fully
explain.
flush.
Please explain to us what happened.
Yeah, so I tested this at the Pathwaves in here in Miami. They tested a bunch of tests on me, and that produced way more white fluid in the brain, and that's called the gamma breath. So it would be a deep inhale like that, like you were talking about the 64. You see how things just, I didn't even know about that, but you just brought it right there, and I was like, oh, sounds like what I call the gamma breath. And then you would slow down the exhale after that, and it disperse that resonance you created outwardly.
Right. And so, that instrument that you were using, give a little more insight as far as like what that is doing. Like what is the instrument, made of, and what are you actually doing in real time, and what immediate benefits do you feel by doing it?
The immediate benefits, you're opening the back of the throat, and when you're opening the back of the throat, there's a certain soft spot that you can feel the air starts to twirl, depending on how much you can create that piezoelectric effect when you inhale and open that particular part. And I guess that's where certain fluids from the spine starts to like create like a suction in a sense, and have that interaction of why it creates more like white matter in the brain that way.
Yeah, no. So that ties into tone. I spoke about this, this is of course why they tell us to do the because you can literally feel the vibration within the glands of the skull. But what that does within the plasma in the brain is it creates a disturbance, and it generates what you call electrical acoustic shock waves, more specifically standing waves. And those standing waves then become a detector of the 0 point. Same thing that stars do. Stars are nothing but balls of plasma that has a counter rotation, clockwise and counterclockwise. But by way of that disturbance, it's generating electrical acoustic shock waves, basically, which are transducers of the 0 point. So the luminosity of stars are coming by way of their rotation, but they're pulling on the fabric of space and time through a mathematics called torsion tensor. See, so in essence, that's what's taking place within the brain by way of the tone that you set up to create that disturbance within the plasma. So if you look even in Kemet and you look in Karnak they have the alleyway with a bunch of rams going down each side.
Yeah,
And
I remember that.
under the ram is sitting Osiris. Osiris is deemed the god of the underworld. But what is the underworld? The underworld is counter space. What we've been talking about, the dielectric field. What is the ram running synonymous with? The ram is running synonymous with the ventricles in the brain. What are they telling you? They're telling you that the brain has the capacity to access that zero point or the underworld by way of tone. So setting up a disturbance by way of the tone within the plasma in the brain, that is going to allow you to literally create standing waves within the plasma that become a transducer of that zero point. So in Karnak, they're telling you literally that the skull, the brain itself, the four ventricles, have the ability to access Osiris, which is the god of the underworld. So because I always tie in Kemet. Kemet is very scientific when it comes to their demonstration in not only anatomy but cosmology, and them giving us a symbiotic relationship to how our body works with the cosmos. So like I spoke about earlier in the video, we're talking about Aset. We're talking about structure, plasma in the body. How do you structure the plasma in the body? You go outside and put your bare feet in the earth, which is a capacitor. A capacitor, has a polarity, a negative charge and a positive charge. The space in the center will be the zero point of the dielectric field, who they deified in Kemet as Shu, S-H-U. So when you can equip yourself with a technique by way of a specific tone and meditating in the capacitor, which is the space, or the insulator, which is the space that exists in between the polarity of the positive and negative charge, the surface of the earth being negatively charged, the ionosphere being positively charged. If you can set up a specific space or a technique within that space that we exist in by way of creating a disturbance within the plasma in the brain with setting up a tone, that is going to allow you to access that zero point field. And that's what they're talking about literally in Karnak, so that's just, again, another technique, another real-time demonstration that you can acquire to allow you to access a field that we can't visibly see.
Yeah, it was following that tone that allowed me to get to that deep point. Going back to what I was talking about, that was alive, but I can take an inhale and I can hear the vibratory resonance go whoop, 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 whoop. So if I'm in a quiet spot, like I can hear it go deeper and just follow it, and then it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you're realizing like I'm following different waves within the body. But if I'm in a loud, crowded space, it'll take a little bit longer, but I can still get to that point. And going back to the whole aspect of the zero point, it's like time. Like you'll notice like things kind of happen before they happen, in a sense. That's like the best way I can describe it.
And that's called retroactive causation or something like that. And I don't want to go too much into it because I don't want to get too technical with it, but in the brain, the neurons have the capacity to do that retrocausality. So individuals like yourself, Blue Pill, we're able to spot patterns and be able to gauge reality and see what's going to happen before it happens by way of what you call the Kashmir effect. So it's a certain level of pressure that happens in the brain by way of the cavity in between both neurons that generate what you call, they call them phonons. But basically, this gives you the capacity to tap into retrocausality by understanding the effect before the cause. You see, so this is an actual effect inside the brain. So when I'm introducing ideas and concepts like these, again, I'm giving people the ability to create the visual in the mind. So now the mind then can now have a visual or a reference point so that the brain can then begin to create a completely different neural synapse in reference to information, so that the body can now set up the resonance to attract information that I'm presenting to you right now. And that's what it's all about, equipping the mind with new forms of information so that way our reality can change in real time. So that is an actual science that people, like I said, myself and Bluefield tap into. We're able to gauge, certain events before they transpire, and that's by way of what they call the Kashmir effect. But it's a certain pressure that takes place within the neurons that generate what they call tachyons, or they call solitons, they call phonons. But in essence, it's basically the ability to, and I think I'm saying that right, retrocausality or something like that. They call it in physics
No,
retrocausality.
you got it right. Yeah, you got it.
Retrocausality. It's the ability to see the effect before the cause. But yeah, that's again a different level of information that we got to acquire and equip our minds to understand it. Yeah, so
That was the first time I've done
Yes,
that.
indeed. So, brother, do you have any, yes?
No, I just felt
Do
synchronistically.
you have any
called.
other techniques or methods?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I said, do you have any other techniques or methodologies that you can share with the audience to help them tap into their breathing rhythmic frequency?
Yeah, a simple one with the aspect of mental breath work. Getting in the habit of whenever you're inhaling, say that I'm inhaling, I'm exhaling, I'm inhaling. Do that for a whole day, and you'll finally see the causalities, the times when I'm like, oh, am I taking a breath here? Am I not? And you'll be more in tune with your space. And a simple one I love to share, I feel called to in this moment, is using eye breathing with the foundational resonance of structures. Now, if any one of you guys know, I think this pertains more into Hindu, the Hindu side of things, even before even feng shui, because I was talking with Illuminati Congo. We had a whole conversation on this because do you guys know Ross terms?
Ross.
Yes, it's my man.
Yeah, Ross. So when Ross came here, he blew my mind with corners because
You see that?
oh snap, yeah.
You see the rock?
I see the
It's my guy.
shout out Ross. Yeah, when I met him at the Art
Shout out
Museum
Ross.
here in Miami, he was talking some in-depth things when it comes to corners and what he does to a certain space when he has showcases. And the information that he was talking, when you hear some information, it's just like some part of you kind of like shuts down, and you're like, I don't know if I can like digest this in a certain resonance. But it's always stuck with me with with certain corners, because corners in general, the best way I can simplify it right now is they're the structure of the building. No matter how you look at it, they're the structure of buildings in this matrix reality, if you will. So a simple way of harmonizing yourself with an environment is on your inhales, you would look down at the corner. On your exhales, you would gaze up to the top of the corner, and doing that back and forth and really slowing down your exhales, moving with your eyes, going back and forth with the corner. And I do that a lot specifically with people that work in the entrepreneurial side or offices, in office spaces, that gets them to really tap into the now even more. Like I tell them, get get to their meetings 10 minutes before and do this exercise. That way, when you're having the meeting, in the corner of your eye, when you see the corner, your subconscious is registering like, hey, I'm in a safe space right now. I'm chill. Everything's good. And this is a great way to tap in with your environment, because that's a meeting point in the structure in general. And our ancestors knew this when it comes to certain architectural means and these certain temples, of why you want, when it comes to sound healing, why you want certain sound healers in every corner to cover that, even in medicine spaces. Why the corners are covered, because that is a foundational piece. And with the eye breathing, you can do that in any space. So at any time you see a building and you notice a corner of it, you can do that with the building, outside the building, but internally when you go inside a place in your own space, harmonizing. And what you're doing, you're not just harmonizing with the environment, you're also imprinting the environment as well. Because as you're exhaling, as your eyes is moving down, there's something called the Heisenberg theory, where they had this guy's eyes open for like 10 plus hours. I don't know the whole experiment, but they finally can measure like a ray coming out of his eyes, and that's where the whole where you hear Hollywood actors would say the eyes are the projectors, right? In a sense, it's inverse both ways, no matter how you look at it. But the eyes are somewhat a projector, and saying that always reminds me of that Haile Selassie event where that gunman came and almost shot him and when he was speaking at the UN, and the gunman started trembling because Haile Selassie was using that technique in a sense where he could like push out energy in his eyes, and I felt that's what he was doing to that gunman, because he's very trained in certain practices. A lot of royals are low key in that sense, and the gunman was trembling, and the gunman starts crying, and he dropped the gun, and the security start coming in. But it just goes to show you how powerful the eyes are. In certain qigong techniques, you know, that's what they use when enemies would try to come at you, but then the persons just start going over when you get eye contact with them, using as a weapon.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Mhm.
I want to speak about something. There was a interview that I seen you do, and for the family that's tapped in, you know, who follow me, of course, you know, we got the God Body Challenge starting tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp. 3 to 5 days, no solid food, just water. But you know, there's an interview that you were doing, and um, you had said basically that you haven't eaten in 4 years.
Going on 5.
Wow.
Please explain to the family
So I
what.
haven't eaten solid food in 5 years, and one of the reasons why I like to say solid, because you know there's different ways of eating. In terms of the music you listen to, that counts as part of your diet. The people you hang around with, that counts as your diet. Your environment in general counts as your diet. That's why I like using infrared light here, because it activates more ATP in the body. So you know, just the basis of infrared shows people that, wait, I thought eating food activates ATP in the body. Sunlight activates ATP in the body as well. So it just doesn't, you know, food densities of food starts to become apparent the more you're tapped into the breath in general. But not only that, you're tapped into your body, the subconscious mind that is the body as well. And the more I started to be more in tune with this body, and when I got initiated into a practice called Bigu, when I lost everything to a business partner 9+ years ago now, wow, in California, that was also the same time I said everything was my fault at that pinnacle moment. And the main thing that kept on popping up for me was, man, how was I breathing in those times leading down to that downward spiral with that business partner, right? So you start to breathe, going back into the aspect of the body being the best scalar machine there is. Because what's happening is when we utilize certain things outside of us, it's not really outside of us to a certain degree. What's happening is it's giving the body different dimensions of reality to allow the body to heal itself. So nothing outside of us in general has really healed. No doctor, no shaman, no, even plant medicine in itself has not technically healed. What all these things, quote unquote, outside of us has done is create the environmental resonance for allowing our bodies to tap into different dimensions and in a sense, take back certain information and give the body itself what it needs
What it
at
needs.
that point in time. Exactly.
So okay, um, So solid foods. So when you say you haven't, so when you're referencing solid foods, are you doing just water, like juices? Like explain that piece. Like
Yeah,
what
so
exactly?
right now it's 90% coconut water, the rest OJ, orange juice, the junk food, orange juice, the junk food. I love activated charcoal too with lime. That's a favorite right now as well, and uh, grape juice as well. Putting that into the juicer, that's a go-to. And now it's watermelon season, watermelon juice. That's a go-to. So right now, I personally, if you want to call it dry fast, and I'll tap into the difference between fasting and I guess the lifestyle that I live. But if you want to call it dry, I'm dry for 20 plus hours, and then I'll have something to drink.
Okay.
Yeah. So the difference between the fasting aspect and the lifestyle aspect is when you're fasting, you're not somewhat substituting what you're fasting from, right? With the lifestyle that I'm living, I somewhat substituted, but not just substitute, I built a foundation with the breath, allowing me to tap into different densities of the food journey, if you will. Because when I came back from Cali, I started hanging out with some old friends, started smoking again, even more. And that showed me like different densities that got me to eat more too, in a sense, too. And I noticed how much energy, because it was such a hard contrast, especially being with a Bigu master, being in his presence and seeing the things he could do and just
What is
being in that energy.
what is Beagle?
So Bigu, it's a Taoist practice of getting to the point of cultivating energy in the body to the point you don't need uh, dense foods,
Okay.
using certain breathing mechanics. And so I took everything I learned from him and I meshed it together when I was going to those science expos in Cali with certain NASA scholars and based what I call alchemy breathwork, based off any technology known to man is based off the human body, and mesh that into the breathing practices that the breath itself is still teaching me to this day. And even he took that. He loves that. He's like, this kid's getting it. So tapping into that, the breath itself being a body, that's what it taught me, that the breath itself, when you can honor the fact that the breath itself is an entity, if you will, because it really is. It's invoking the spirit. And I truly don't believe that the breath itself is keeping us alive. It's the mechanics of the breath that's really unfathomable by this human vessel, the human vessel in terms of the mind. But the breath mechanics itself is somewhat keeping us alive. Because even to the point where we don't breathe, the astral body starts to somewhat breathing. And what breathing is, down to the core of it, it's contrast. That's what it's teaching, and that's what it's riding on, and somewhat teaching us at the same time. Contrast, right? Going back to that nothing is somewhat physical, everything is moving back and forth, right? What's that? Contrast. So when I hear certain guru, I think it was Swami Ramalinga, he said, "Don't trust the man that only breathes with his nose." Right? What he truly meant was, don't trust the man that views breath in a one-dimensional way, where in the sense that everything is breathing. Even before religion started to become a thing, our ancient ancestors down with the Dogons, they understood that everything is animated. They believed in animism. We're down to the stick that is somewhat dead from embarked from the tree. It still held a vibration, right? And now Western science is catching up, and now it's finally saying that nothing is quote unquote physical. Well, if nothing's physical and it's somewhat moving, it somewhat has it has an animating essence to it, right? And the breath teaches us that.
It's animate objects, you know.
Yeah, and I use breath to harmonize that with everything around me, so I don't feel in the sense of lack, and that's like the main driving point. And going back to like what you said about compassion, because that's so big. certain people within this community would say that, hey, how do you go to this gathering and you're so, don't you feel all light and this, how can you be around certain people? Well, I don't judge people. That's one. Because the day I stopped judging people was the day I felt even lighter. And, I always give this example where you could have a robber, a killer, or anything, and they go to jail, right? They're in jail right now, but their body is still healing, right? It doesn't stop the cosmic law, the natural law that is, right? So the body's still healing, but they are what they are in terms of what they choose to be at that moment in time. So I utilize that aspect no matter where I go, who I'm with. That essence within is within everybody, right? That's a meditation that everyone low key is doing at a subconscious level, that they're harmonizing, but they're just most obviously are not aware of that. So that energy is like all around me everywhere I go, and I built up a foundation with the breath, harmonizing with that. And one of my go-to is like, no matter where I go and I see a group of people, everyone around me is breathing just like me, and it becomes a dance, it becomes a play, and you're literally riding the rhythm of energy. No matter where you go, down to the trees are breathing, down to this phone is breathing, in a sense, going back to the aspect of contrast. So it becomes an environmental play with the breath and how it bounces off each other, going back and forth. And I like to say the exact exhale you take travels 3 to 5 days coming right back to you. So that in itself, it's magnetic. The breath itself is magnetic, right? So whenever I hear people say, exhale what no longer serves you, at the end of the day, the exhale is going to serve you one way or the other. Actually, a lot more happens a lot on the exhale than the inhale, in a sense. At the end of the day, the exhale is going to serve you. It's going to come right back to you. The wind itself is somewhat your exhale. And just giving that awareness that you really are connected via breath, or just via soul resonance, if you will, with everything around you. And that's the foundation you start to build. And for some people, it may seem far in the distance, but the more you start building that, the more you can feel the density of it actually being real, and the physicalities of what you're somewhat digesting into your everyday life, in terms of talking to people, in terms of certain decisions and how certain decisions make you feel at a real ripple effect, if you will. And the more I started to see the ripple on my decisions, the more I could tell what was causing certain emotions, what was causing certain traumas, if you will. And that allowed me to live on more of the breath that is, or I like to say, I'm literally breathing the all that is and riding on that. And that's within everybody.
Yeah, I experience the same phenomena when I fast. I fast once a month, maybe twice, and you gain a certain level of reflection about yourself. Like you said, you eliminate the aspect of judgment, which gives you the capacity now to basically self-empower yourself. Because now you completely got rid of this, concept of judgment, and now you're harnessing your energy back, per se.
And energy budget. You got a better hand on your energy budget.
Right. And like I've always said, love is self-induced. When you feel a level of compassion for people, that's actually the level of love and compassion that you feel for yourself. It's self-induced. So when you begin to embrace that for yourself, naturally you'll begin to radiate that energy out and attract people in that same frequency. But see, we've been conditioned to respond to people outside of us, not understanding that the people outside of us just serve as a catalyst to stimulate that self-love that we naturally have within ourselves, and thus radiate that out to attract people on the same frequency. This is how you build a team. This is how you develop relationships with people. But it all starts with self, and fasting and ridding yourself of certain foods, music, certain things on TV will even down to judgment, will allow you to, begin to harness your power that you naturally have, and begin to again see things outside of you as the inside. And when you experience that phenomena, that compassion again is a self implosion. That is an implosion of the magnetic field inward, and that changes the rhythm of the heart. That changes the rhythm of the way that your body just syncs with life in general, because you're inducing self love. You know, so when that happens, you empower yourself, and thus you attract people on that same frequency. It's that simple. But I'm just, you know, it's amazing, you know, when I heard that, the fact that you don't consume solids, like, you know, and that level of discipline, you know, is not really spoken on a lot. And it takes a lot of discipline to be able to do something to that extent. So, you know, again, it takes a level of self-love for you to be able to rid yourself of understanding that, first of all, the foods that we're putting in our body isn't necessarily good for us if we are consuming things that we know aren't good for us. But at the same time, completely ridding yourself of that dynamic of your reality, you know, and experiencing again a whole nother frequency that, you know, we're not accustomed to feeling. So, you know, that's a very powerful, you know, demonstration that you do.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And yeah, that's a, you know, I just want to add on, you don't technically fast once a month. You fast when you're not eating at all. Like right now, technically you're fasting,
True.
right?
Yeah.
So the more we can breathe life into that awareness, the more we can also help us even prolong deeper fast. You know, the sense that you're giving that awareness to your subconscious mind. That's a great tip I want to share in that sense. Preparing for a fast in general too. You know, when you wake up, you're like, oh, I didn't eat for however long you slept. That's technically a fast in itself, right? So when we that was my starting journey, and that's a powerful tool for everyone who is interested in going on fasting and tapping into that.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. And like I said, for the family tomorrow, the God Body Challenge starts 3 to 5 days, no solid food, just water. And you know, like I've said in the past as well, I always line these fasts up with certain celestial events to maximize the energy output. Understanding that the body itself is a semiconductor, we have the capacity to be more photoreceptive, and thus allowing us to respond to a higher frequency of light by way of the local celestial geometry. So when you have different planets in proximity, you know, the space that we all exist in, which is a more refined version of water, is manipulated, you know, and thus it gives us the ability to pull in this energy during a fast, because now the body is returning to a place of homeostasis. You know, we're all made of an amalgamation of cells at the end of the day. So what we're seeing in the mirror is not what we actually look like per se. And when you begin to fast and rid yourself of food, the cells in the body begin to not only regenerate, but return back to, you know, the state that they originally were. And thus now their source of nutrition is their original stimuli, which is light, you know, more specifically sunlight. So, you know, I always encourage the family too, when they're fasting, make sure that you're going outside and getting that sunlight, because the cells are going to, you know, utilize that light and maximize it. And not only that, make sure that that light, or not, yeah, let me say that, because the light that you process during the day, you know, of course, is the light that you use in order to regenerate the body upon the body going to sleep. So, you know, it's again understanding the body at a whole different level, and beginning to rid ourselves of certain things that we know, you know, will completely destroy the body. And once we begin to move in step with that, you know, we again will feel a whole nother level of energy that we've never experienced, you know. So that's again for you, that's a very powerful thing that you do, you know.
Yeah, it also reminded me of in Romania, they have a tradition for people who practice energy practices, where on their birthday, they would tell you to go to the place you were born and do any type of energy work, breath work, meditation, or just be still as much as you can at that place to really pull in a certain portal of energy back to yourself. And another practice is finding out what day you were born, and if it's like the first time you want to fast in that sense, that'll be a nice powerful start, or utilizing that day as a catalyst to start your fast type of thing, in terms of time being non-existent, and formulating around that perception of reality to use as a powerful tool. Yeah, blue pill. Yeah, brother.
Yeah, I want to read a chapter out of a book. This book is the Gene Key, right? And this is the 44th Gene Key. I have a relationship with this particular number and this frequency. Um, the 44th Gene Key deals with karmic relationships and human fractals in particular. But there's a part of it called the gift, and this was very interesting to me. I'll read. It's called Bodies and Bloodlines. As the frequency of the 44th gene key rises, the gift of teamwork is born. This is actually a fascinating gift because, at a very deep level, it concerns the human sense of smell. Much research has gone into the incredibly sensitive olfactory abilities of certain mammals, but most people are unaware of how this sense operates at a higher frequency within humans. These are people whose these are people whose genius is to read other people. They can literally size you up with a single handshake. This is not an auditory gift like the 57th gift of intuition that can, for example, read you from the tone of your voice over the telephone. The 44th gift requires close personal contact in order for the higher aspects of your olfactory nature to work effectively. You have to be able to smell someone in order to read their true nature. People with the 44th gift use their sense of smell at a wider level than simply smelling through the nose. In fact, these people smell with their entire immune system and through every pore within their skin. They can pick up undetectable odors such as pheromones and other subtle hormonal signals from those whom they met. At a deeper level, this gift is about someone being in alignment with his or her own fractal. Once you have a high enough frequency, you can overcome the collective interference of the 44th shadow and begin to pick up the scent of your true allies in life. Now, I want to stop there and do say, specifically because I'm understanding more about these gene keys, different people have different access to different superpowers and it works for them brilliantly based on their human design. um do you have any sense of what this text may have been speaking of in terms of the ability to harness the full capabilities of your body in regards to smelling and detecting people in your circumference?
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with that one because uh, hmm. So a powerful way to add on that is the hot and cold therapy, where you go inside the steam, and then you go inside cold, and you go back and forth, back and forth.
Yes.
That actually helps analyze literally everything you just said, getting that ability to sense more through the pores, unclogging that. Another great practice is going into the sauna, or a Thomas Skull, if you will, and then going straight into the sunlight. And when you're doing that, you're then training your pores to read light. It's more than it's more than just heat at that point. You're training your pores to absorb the light, but also read the light in that aspect. So when people with certain skin cancers, when I work with them and stuff, they actually tend to enhance that gene, literally word for word, what you said, that intuition, where they can go into a certain room and they feel when it's off. Like I'm at the point where a person can have like a faint of cologne, and I can like tell. I can like ride the string of the cologne smell, and even when they're talking, like I can tell like what kind of person they are in a sense.
All right. So, do you know your human design? Do you know if the 44th gene key falls into your design at all?
I'm a generator, and with the gene keys, I choose to keep that private.
I got you.
Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Okay. Yes. But again, I just when I read it jumped out to me, and I felt it would have been definitely appropriate for this conversation. Um, the very first time I had to fast, or I decided to fast, it was in '95 December, and I decided to do it coinciding with the Nation of Islam. I was incarcerated, and I got pushed back on by the administration in that facility. So it was a test, and I accepted the challenge, and I was successful in the long run after 3 days. But in that process, it was extra pressure on top of me just fasting, because the authorities in this particular facility, they was like, very aggressive. Um, but I stood my ground and everything, and I was drawing. I put all of my energy and focus into drawing and reading the Quran. And I remember after that last confrontation, when the sheriff came into my cell and apologized and everything of that nature, um, I was able to, same way that they talking about, like everybody's hand that I would touch, within that very second, I would know exactly everything that was going on in their pain body, what I needed to speak to, specifically to help in those situations. So, I've experienced some things that kind of helped me understand this was being said on another level.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing in that sense that we're finally becoming more aware of as a collective that our pores are breathing, but our pores is somewhat taking information as well, and the breath holds information, right? I say when you practice inhale hold, you're actually analyzing the environment around you in a sense. That's why in a way I focus more on the exhales, because with the exhales there's more internal focus.
Conversation, focus, meditation, right? Like you said, especially if you're slowing down, like exhale to me is compression. So everything is coming, you know what I'm saying? And you could be fully present and just, alchemizing or eliminating or transference of energy. Any whatever it is that your intent is in that process, the exhale is really pretty much where it's at.
Yeah, and it's creation in that sense, because every with our eyes open we already taken so much information already, but how much are we giving back to creation? That was one of the biggest aha moments I had when it comes to breath.
Yeah, you spoke on too, even the breath itself. When you do or perform the inhale, you're breathing in, electricity. We call it oxygen, but it's electricity. And I've always said, like, they got to switch the language up, because if we understood that the body is a semiconductor and we were breathing in electricity, it's game over, right? But the breathing in of electricity is what stimulated, like you referenced earlier, the ATP by way of the mitochondria, the adenosine triphosphate. And that is the phosphorus, the light bearer, that is initiated by way of the plasma in the body. Because when you have phosphorus oxidized within cytoplasm, that creates a combustion which releases light that the cells use in order to communicate. And that light is scalar energy. That light is, longitudinal waves. That light is, instantaneous action at a distance. So the light that we are composed of and that the cells use is what we are, calling today scalar energy. And scalar energy is not lossy, meaning there is no loss of power within a transmission of, scalar waves. So it's equivalent to an analogy of two people on the end of a long ruler or stick. The minute I push on one end, immediately the other person on the other end is going to move, as opposed to, a jump rope. Now, if I were to flicker a jump rope between two people, if I was standing on one end and the other person was on the other, and if I were to create that snake motion or that wave motion from my end to the other end, by the time it gets to the other end, there has been a loss of energy, from originally the energy that it composed of. So that is a transverse, that is Hertzian energy, that is electromagnetism. But when we're talking about scalar energy, we're talking about no lossiness, no loss of power from one end to the other. So just like the analogy I just gave, when you have two people standing on a ruler, the minute I push on it, instantaneously the other person is going to move. And this is why they don't talk about the fact that the sun is scalar energy, because the minute I step outside, there's no delay. I don't feel it 8 seconds later. I don't feel it 2 seconds later. I feel it instantaneously. It don't matter if the sun is 1,000,000 miles, 1,000,000,000, it doesn't matter how far the sun is. I feel that immediate physical effect as soon as I step outside. So we're dealing with scalar energy. That's what scalar energy in essence is. It's omnipresent. It's everywhere at once. So that is a very powerful, again, energy that we have the capacity to enact with. And not only that, like I said, thoughts are scalar energy. The minute I think of an object or a person, instantaneously it's there. And I've always said, in order to crystallize it, you got to apply force and motion behind it, because the force and motion is what begins to spiral it inward. And as you're spiraling that thought inward, it's almost equivalent to collecting charge. And that's quite frankly what you're doing. So when you're working towards your thought, you're spiraling it inward, and that spiraling is collecting inertia, which is the definition for mass. So it's the conjugate geometry of the universe by way of force and motion, which is the working of the thought, versus inertia and acceleration, which is the actual thought. So the instantaneous action at a distance is by way of me thinking of something that I want. But in order to get it, I have to apply the other aspect of the universe, which is force and motion, by applying the working towards getting it. And that is what begins to spiral it inward, collecting inertia, and eventually crystallizing into a physical object, which is mass, you see. So, that is an important factor in understanding that we have the capacity to basically exist in the 0 point by understanding that conjugate relationship between two motions, two forces, centripetal and centrifugal, or force and motion versus inertia and acceleration, magnetism versus dielectricity, you see. And, electricity is just a hybrid of dielectricity. If you compared it to the family dynamic, the dielectric would be the father, the magnetism would be the mother, the electricity would be the child. If you relegated that towards Kemet, Osiris or Osar would be the dielectric, which is dark energy, dark matter. Aset would be magnetism, or Mary, and things of that nature. And then electricity would be Heru, that's the child.
Yeah.
So, it's just important in understanding, when you're talking about field theory, field symmetry, when you're talking about electromagnetism, the dynamic of light is all around us. It's just we can't see it, but the body, being the highest form of technology, has the capacity to interact with it. And we are, in essence, made of scalar energy. Again, the cells in our body communicate by way of scalar energy. The thoughts are scalar energy, So, we are a whole dynamic of a universe in and of itself. And like I spoke on earlier, when we begin to fashion ourselves in such a way to acquiesce to a reality that we want to see happen, and we have the audacity to begin to create metaphors around our specific nature in reference to what we see outside of us, this is how the universe is going to respond. It's going to respond by way of, you know, delivering you the experiences that you want by way of you claiming yourself to be a creator, be an alchemist, you know, be a mathematician, a scientist, all of these things in real time, you know. So that's dealing with scalar energy in essence, you know.
Yes, indeed. So we are at the 2 hour mark. This has been a very thorough program. Uh, some amazing information has been shared. My brother, is there anything that you have coming up that the audience may need to know about?
If you're in Miami, stay tuned for July the 25th. I'm going to be hosting, we're going to have frequency breathers, lots of 0 point energy, fuel generators. It's never been done before. We're going to start off with an Alchemy Breathwork session and CAP Kundalini activation process, which is very interesting to correlate them two together. And everyone's going to have the frequency breathers. What they are, they're frequency breathers. They have a crystal inside. There's a tensor ring. And I got the idea from studying bees, where the fact that bees don't fly, and there's a therapy in like the Moscow region, the Russia region, where people would go into these facilities and breathe in the beehive, and scientists are still figuring out how people are healing from that. And what's happening is they're just breathing in the vibration, the vibratory resonance of the frequencies of the bees buzzing and creating that resonance. And when they create that resonance in their chest cavity, they ride on the magnetic field. And you can, and they did stuff where they followed these bees, and they found they're creating specific highways. They weren't going in random places whatsoever, and that's how intelligent nature is. And if we just follow the essence of nature, it can teach us so many things. And that's what gave me the idea of frequency breathers, where you can plug in certain frequencies, breathe it in. But beyond that, you can just even use your own hand, put the wires in here, and literally breathe in the pulsations from the hand and create a circuitry going back and forth. You're creating and also teaching yourself of how to do that. And we even, when we were in Kemet, we did sound bowls, and the sound healer, she put the wire onto the sound on the sound bowl, and I was like, oh snap, well, vibration frequencies. I'm like, I never even thought about that. So we're learning so many different ways of doing it. I've even done it connecting it to the pyramid while doing certain breathing mechanics with it. And I had my friend Zeko. He's done something I've never even thought about doing, where you're listening to the same frequency and also breathing it at the same time. And he's someone that doesn't believe in certain holistic modalities, but he finally got to experience it for himself, and that was an eye opening for me, because when you can listen to the certain frequency at the same time, different dimensions of where the body is picking up that frequency and then breathing it at the same time is so powerful. So we have that going on. And yeah, just stay tuned. My Instagram is the Black Vendor.
Are those devices that people can purchase as well?
Yeah, we're in limited supply right now, because we're getting to the phase of 3D printing very soon.
Okay.
Yeah, you can purchase it on www.alchemybreath.work. Go to Breath Healing Tools, and you'll find a whole bunch of tools there that is very helpful in your everyday life. Infrared, the scalar tech itself, the holographic stickers, and utilizing.
The address again?
www.alchemybreath.work.
Okay. Yeah, again, we are enamored and honored to have you on a platform, because this is what sets our platform up to be different than other podcasts. We bring people on who are actually in full demonstration of doing things in real time by way of acknowledging the body as a source or a piece of technology. And not only that, you're actually building out equipment that is conducive for that as well. Whether we're talking about the breath, we're talking about electricity and magnetism, you know, uh, and all of these things, and the fact that you went into the not eating up to 5 years and just solely doing liquids. I mean, that is, has to be commemorated and honored in and of itself. So again, we are glad that the family got an opportunity to hear your discernment and see what you're working with, because there are individuals like yourself who are anomalies, who a lot of people aren't familiar with. But the minute we can get you and people like you in front of groups of us who are very scientifically inclined, it sparks the interest and motivates others to do exactly what you're doing. So we just, again, and we're honored to have you on the platform. We consider you to be, a super head rule, real-time demonstrator, and someone who is really going to shift the paradigm in due time. And it's not like you already have it. You know what I'm saying? So again, we just wanted to give you your flowers and honor, what you do. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, guys. And one of my missions of why I present breathwork the way I do to be used in real time is to give everyone else that power to be, quote unquote, what I call walking glitches. Where we go from compartmentalizing what we think meditation is at a certain point and bring it into the real world and really switch real happenings in real time, and giving people that real tangible experience is so needed, because we're remembering. I like to say we're remembering, and this is ancient future at the same time. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
And real quick before we get out of here, like I said, I just wanted to again showcase the fact that you're doing something completely that's abnormal. The fact that you're wearing a pyramid on your head with no care in the world. It doesn't matter who is saying what, about that. You're still in full-time demonstration. So that in and of itself is cosmic law, because you're following your own laws, you're following your own dictates. So naturally, the universe is going to respond. The universe is going to respond because you are upgrading the universe, counter space, by way of flickering in and out of existence. So by you acknowledging yourself as not only somebody completely different than the average person, but you're actually wearing a pyramid on your head, like that is something that is, not only unforgivable or unforgettable, but also too, it creates another conversation. It's a paradigm shifter. And we get so accustomed to doing the same things every day. But once you can introduce something that's completely contrary to what society deems normal, like wearing a pyramid on your head, it creates a whole nother conversation for individuals like us who are scientifically inclined and very interested to say, like, what does that do? What type of benefits does that serve? We acquire that knowledge and then we follow suit, So you're doing something that is very, again, inspiring for not only myself and Blue, but the world in general. So I just wanted to highlight that you're following cosmic law naturally by doing something outside of the norm, and the universe has to respond to it, and you're doing it in real time. So,
yes, absolutely. My brothers, I want to say thank you. I appreciate, everybody that tuned in, everyone that's going to see this broadcast after the fact. All right, definitely tap in to the brother's site, show them some support, give them some business, and also, order some products so you can see for yourself. how to tap in and tune in real time. Really be present. Be aware of your breathing patterns. And what I've experienced as well is once they get this rhythmic regimen down packed, it just naturally you're gonna entrain yourself to go into that flow. And before you know it, your body's already trained up to do its breathing patterns properly. But be conscientious of your breathing. Do you advocate for abdominal breathing? Is that the form of breathing that you advocate for, or is there a
Yeah,
difference?
for sure. That's why I go straight with pure nasal breathing, because the nasal goes straight to the abdominal. Even if you have like a fractured spine and you can't really bend a certain way, at least you're still going straight, and you're building up certain
Like,
muscles, and it's going to help your posture overall in general too.
again, I can't overemphasize the importance of visualization. So I'm trained in a martial arts system called Bakwa, right, which is an internal martial arts system that heavily focuses on the breath and visualization techniques. And one of the techniques that we implore is to envision fish gills on your collarbone, right? And we would inhale from here as well. We would visualize it inhaling coming from inside of these gills on our collarbones. And what this is helping us do is build up the fortitude of our bone structures within itself. And on our exhale, we would envision nostrils on our navel.
Mm.
So we were
Mm.
doing abdominal exhales with the nostrils on our navel, but this was also, especially utilizing fire breaths and things of that nature, this is cooling down our lower extremities because you start feeling the exhale coming by way of the not by way of the navel. So I will again implore people, challenge your mind, see what it's hitting for. You got some hardware on your shoulders that you are not tapping into. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? You're not getting the full exhaust out of this tempo that you deserve to. You may actually be operating on 1%.
Facts.
And
Facts.
that's no, I'm just like let's all right, three, all right. Cause y'all, people
Yeah.
really they hyped up about this. Like, what, bro? All right. You just said all right, 3%. You got 97% to go. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Challenge yourself. You
Right.
have no idea your wildest dreams. You feel me? What this body can do is capable of. Real
Yeah, and
talk.
when you yeah, and when you can finally get to the space where you're demonstrating certain things in real time, and people ask you like, how you doing what you're doing, and you can't explain it, that's the space you want to be at because at that moment you're tapped into a knowing. You can't even quantify really what you're demonstrating, but it's coming from a source, and it's because again you've acquiesced to a higher level of dimensional energy that we all can acquire in real time. So, when you're doing things and they can't be explained, that is an amazing place to be at because now it's just valuable to you. Nobody can quantify it. Nobody can put a label on it. It's something that belongs solely to you. So you begin to filter, the one truth and express it completely unique than somebody, next to you. So, again, what you're doing, you're showcasing just that.
We were utilizing a technique called iron belt, and iron belt was helping us build up our diaphragm. And when we was building up our diaphragm, I saw my sensei. He had what we call diamond body. He was able to push you right. You could be on the other side of a wall, on the other side of the room, and he can garner up that chi via that breath and
Hmm.
physically push your ass halfway across the room with him being all the way over there. So again, this breath is magical. It's an entire entity, like the brother said, and this whole contest called life is about you. What they say in the Bible, Aaron had to wrestle his angel. When you realize the faculty and the access that you will have by synergistically coming into a sound relationship with your breath, You know, for the brothers that's out there in the gym, you're not lifting weights. Cut it out. You're doing breath work. At least if you was properly exercising and working out. Working out is diaphragmic, point blank, period. That's the dojo for you to get closer in contact with breathing and convincing yourself the ability for the mind to take over where the body falls short. You know what I'm saying? And you'll see through the breathing how the mind can come into the body and actually take over.
Right, because breath is the connector of the
But it's
conscious.
the medium. It's the medium.
Right.
And I'm telling y'all something that's not hypothetical. These are things I've experienced.
Right.
To the to the audience. I know you brothers know, but I'm saying, challenging family to press. You know what I'm saying? Press on the breath. You will get everything that you're looking for, and definitely relieve yourself of stress.
Right. And working out is not only diaphragmic, but it's dielectric, because not only are you focused on the breath, but you're dealing with dielectric acceleration, which is what we call gravity, which is giving you the capacity to generate the charge in the body that's piezoelectric. So not only are you focused on the diaphragm, you're focused on the dielectric, which is the gravity that is creating that resistance for you to build up that electricity within the body.
So now you're hitting it. So this is the importance again. This is the cheat code with visualization. So dielectric, when I'm pushing through the wall, right? I'm physically pushing on the wall, dumping through breathing negative energy, but I am envisioning and visualizing a twin pushing back, not only on the other side of the wall, but underneath the floor. So I'm creating all of this dielectric energy on something that people would say visibly is not there. Guess whose body feels the pressure though? Me.
Yep.
Right? How did that happen? Right. So again, it's a beautiful thing, y'all, when we accept it for what it is and we challenges ourselves enough to say, I want to experience that. Let me do it. Because once you do it and you feel it and you like, wow, you know what I mean? I had got literally cut up 19 working out calisthenics, but it was isometrics and breathing and visualization. I was doing it with my mind, shredding my body up. You know what I'm saying? Purely with conquering my faculties of breathing. It wasn't like I was lifting heavy weights. It was my concentration of air and using my body like a hydraulic.
Right. Yeah.
We touch on this when it comes to what I call we call it echo breathing, where you're echoing the essence of your being into multiple versions. And it's just like this one study. I really got to look this study up because it's somewhere out there where they took two groups of people in the hospitals and they told one group to visualize themselves working out, the next group nothing. And 4 months, everyone comes out of the hospital. They did strength training tests, and the people who were visualizing themselves working out did a way lot better than the people who didn't visualize themselves working out.
And this is just to tie that all in together, like I spoke on earlier, and I even wrote it down as a note. But like I said, when human beings that can combine experimental knowledge of cosmic anatomy structure with thought, guided by clear intention, you reclaim one of the most potent forms of scalar power.
Oof.
See? And it's all in reference to the visual, the idea, the mind, the imagination. And when you can couple that with the knowledge of experience through understanding how the body actually works, you're going to tone up a lot quicker by the visual as opposed to the person who's just lifting weights, because you're setting up the resonance in the body by way of, again, allowing the brain to literally create a neural network that is then going to be translated as an endocrine output, which is a hormone that's going to be registered in the body. And now the body has to acquiesce to that thought. You see? So it's all based on visualization. I was going to say, brother, before we get out of here, do you have a certain technique right now in real time that you can all leave us with, that we can demonstrate while we're on the platform?
Yeah, we can tap into flex breathing, since we're talking a little bit about exercise a little bit. Flex breathing, where on your exhales you would literally you can do this while your hands on your lap. I personally like to do it gazing at the sun sometimes, doing it on the exhale. Clench your hands, inhale, open your hands, exhale, clench. You want to, are we doing this together?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. All right. So then when I say relax, just slowly put the left hand on the heart, right hand on the stomach, relax, and then we'll end it there. But then I'll tap into a little bit of echo breathing, where I'm going to remind you and visualize. We're talking about visualization. Remind you and visualize yourself as you're in the resting point, when the hand is on your heart, hand is on your stomach. To visualize yourself as you exhale slowly. Remember how you were going back and forth, squeezing your hand. And as you physically inhale, visualize yourself opening your hand just like you did the act before. And that's something tangible and nice exercise to tap into what Blue Pill was talking about with the visualization as well. All right, ready? We'll start with the inhale, pure nasal breaths. And we'll start in 3, 2, 1 with the inhale. Let's go. Now rest. Slowly bring the left hand to the heart. Slowly bring the right hand to the stomach. And breathe where you can't hear the breath at all. Deeper and deeper exhales. And visualize yourself as you take that inhale. Remember how your hands is opening. And as you take that long exhale, remember how your hands was closing. May everyone breathe breath of life into their abundance, their growth, their awareness, and their overall expanding consciousness. Thank you all for sharing the breath. And that was just a few breaths right there. So I also want to share that you can also do this while you're walking. When you're walking, the resting point, you would just be still and do the visualizations back and forth. And then if you want to go again, go back and forth as you're walking. Go as long as you want. This is a a solid breathing that you're not going to pass out or have seizures. Very safe, very powerful, and definitely add it to your everyday life. That's what it's about, having fun with it as well.
That was powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah, family, tap in. Like, you got a whole reservoir of power just waiting for you to freely tap into it. The only thing that's required is your time and your energy. You know what I'm saying? And you can make art out of that. So
That's a fact. Well, with that
yeah,
being said, family, again, we appreciate you, brother, being on the platform.
Yeah, whenever you guys want to have me on again, I'm open.
yeah. I would like to talk to you about a global quantum meditation. We did a monumental one on April 4th of 2020. We did some last year, programming the ionosphere with our intentions to protect these children in the age of C19. So I think we need to do another one. Tap into the faculty of breath and mind, putting this quantum mind together. So I want to talk to you about that. I think it'll be powerful. I know it will.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll choose a specific day too, for sure.
Mhm.
Because that we all know that manipulates the planetary grid, the planetary field. And like Blue said, they've done that full-time demonstration. It had effects on it in reference to the Schumann resonance. So when we can get as a collective, all of us on one accord through the breath. I mean, that literally manipulates time and space. So let's definitely plan for that. And let's make it a thing where we it doesn't even have to be once a month. It can be every other month where we come together as a collective, and make it a regular thing, uh, to where we all tap in and really make some changes just by collectively putting our minds together and doing
Right.
breath.
Imagine the access that we have, right, to so many powerful beings, self-realized, self-conscious beings, aware of the power that they have that's literally right at their fingertips. They can tap right in by going within, and the rest is a wrap, because just is about us making our minds up. So yeah, we should do it in Gemini season.
Gemini season.
We're coming up on that Mercurial Gemini season, which deals with the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So let's revisit this conversation again. Thank you. We appreciate you. All right. For the family out there, make sure that you hit like, share this, whatever that stuff is.
If you found value, please share.
Yes, please share. Tell a friend to tell a friend. You know what I'm saying? Put them on to this information. Tap them in. All right. We appreciate you all. Thank you. Peace, love, and light.
Peace, man.
And harmony. Peace out, guys.
Peace. Breathe.